Hi YouTube friends, I'm Heidi Villegas with Healing Harvest Homestead, and today I am out doing a little bit of harvesting and foraging, and I thought I would talk with you about black walnut. Black walnut is an amazing tree. They can grow up to about 100 feet tall, sometimes taller, and they were a very strong medicine of the native peoples, and as well beneficial to the colonists and for many others up to these modern times. So we're very blessed to have black walnut here in our area. They grow in zones 4 through 9, and they're just really an amazing tree. They're allelopathic, which means that the roots will send out chemicals into the soil, and they really inhibit the growth of many plants. Not all plants, but many, especially trees. So much like chaparral, you'll find that they don't play well with others. So if you're going to plant a black walnut tree, you might want to do it in a spot where it's by itself. But they're so wonderful, such beautiful, beautiful shade trees. And I'll show you the tree in just a moment. But first, let's go ahead and talk about identification. Because anytime you're out identifying or foraging trees, you want to be able to know what you're looking at exactly. And there's different species of walnuts. So this is black walnut. I love this example here because you can plainly see what's going on. Basically, you've got something called a leaflet or a leaf. This whole entire structure here is a leaf. Okay, and these appendages are called leaflets. It's actually pretty similar to elderberry, only it's much larger. The leaves are much, much larger. They are lanceolate in shape. They have kind of a feathered looking back. And the leaves look like they're opposite, but or the leaflets, I should say. Leaflets are the small, like leaf looking things that are on the stem, but this whole entire thing is considered a leaf. All right, but they look like they're opposite. In fact, they're actually alternate. So let me see if I can get this close up. Do you see how they're not exactly right across from each other? That's an example of an alternate leaf system. I also want you to look at this black resin that's on this leaf. That is what comes out of the inside of the fruit of the walnuts, which are the inside the hulls, which encase the inside. And it's oh, it smells so good. It's extremely aromatic. It's wonderful in terms of the medicine, and this is the part that we actually use for medicine. It's anti-parasitic, it's antifungal, very strongly antifungal. And it's actually also used for ink. So if you want a really nice tincture, I suggest finding some black walnut. You can use it for many, many things, including dyeing clothes and using for ink and things like that. So I'm going to go ahead and show you one more thing here. If I can pull this branch down a little bit. So these right here are the black walnuts. And you can see this one is very ripe. It's already got the resin leaking out, and it's rather soft in the black areas. This is almost past its prime to work with medicinally, but it's still okay. You can see it looks like a little small lime, but it doesn't have the citrus covering like limes do. And it's got a rather gently smooth, gently like ridged hull, and this outer part is called the hull, and this is the part that we use. So I'm going to drop this into my bowl and find another one here. You'll see that let's see, I'll hold it. Whoops, no, they fall off really easily. This one is much like the other one, full of that aromatic resin. Smelling a hull is one way to identify a black walnut, and this is definitely a really beautiful example of one. Some of them are green like this, and these are also just fine to pick. A lot of times, you'll find the branches growing way up high, and I'll show you that in just a moment. But the bright green color is what you want. And they will, when they're ready, they start dropping off the tree, and you can reach down and you can harvest them. So that's how you identify black walnut in a nutshell. Pun intended. And we're going to go ahead and move on to what the tree and the bark and everything looks like. And then we're going to talk about making a black walnut tincture. All right, so let's go ahead and take a look at the bark of a black walnut tree. It's really very beautiful. It's got deep ridges. You can see how deep they are. So that's one indicator. It's a grayish color and very just lovely all the way up. So here we go. That's about how tall it is. It's a beautiful tree. They're just beautiful. Wonderful shade trees. A lot of people plant them just as accents in their yard, but they're so useful. So basically, they're wonderful to have if you're interested in the properties of the black walnut tree. This one that I'm looking at now is actually in my mother's yard in Oregon, and it's just such a beautiful specimen, and I thought I would go ahead and take this opportunity to show it to you because it's just a perfect example. And I love this tree. I love this tree. There we go. All right. Let's go in now and we're going to take a peek at how to tincture black walnut. All right, real quickly before we head on in to get these tinctured, I just wanted to show you one that broke open. So you can see this is the walnut inside, and that is actually not the part that we use. We use the outside hull for medicinal purposes. So this green part is the part we're going to use and not the inside. And I have to just say once again, the resin smells amazing. It's full of iodine and it will stain, so just be careful that you're using containers and not wearing clothing that you care much about, because if you get any of that on you, and you're likely to, it can definitely leave some black marks, and but it smells really good. Okay. All right, so now it's time to go ahead and process the black walnuts. And what we've got here are a bunch of the black walnuts that I picked off the tree and also off the ground. If you can get them off the ground in a clean place, that's actually very helpful, but not necessary. So, but first, before we go ahead and start working with the walnuts, let's talk about what they're good for. So black walnuts are excellent for treating and dealing with internal parasites and fungus. Okay, so two of the grossest things you can imagine, right? Worms and fungus. But they're definitely excellent for helping get rid of tapeworms, pinworms, roundworms, you know, a lot of those common childhood and even pet worms that are floating around. And then fungal infections. And in terms of fungal infections, you've got athlete's foot, ringworm, you've got candida, nail fungus, all kinds of nail fungus that attacks the skin and the outside of the body. Black walnut can be helpful for, in addition to even yeast infections and thrush in the mouth and areas where yeast sometimes takes over. So the black walnut, it can be useful in a tea or a wash or a tincture. Today we're actually going to make an infused oil and a tincture as well. So I'll be showing you a little bit about how to do that in addition to everything else. Benefits of black walnuts. I just want to mention that these are actually hypotensives. They're very good for cardiovascular support, and they also decrease inflammation. So eating your walnuts is a really good idea if you want good heart health and decreased inflammation. But in this case, we are actually going to be making two different herbal preparations that I'll be using later on for different things. So you may be wondering why I'm wearing gloves, and that's because this black resin that is actually oozing out of the hull in some of these little fruits, it stains. It stains very, very badly, and it makes it look like you've been painting and actually like your hands are stained. And it's very useful as a dye, to be honest, and the liquid used to be used in the olden days as ink. So it's quite an interesting little plant. So here we go. We're going to go ahead and cut these in half. I've got quite a sharp knife. Okay, Then you're just going to basically peel it off. Peel off that hull. And what you're going to be left with inside is your fruit, okay? And that's what you see in the stores in a shell. We're getting down to the shell of the fruit here, or the kernel. And it's a rather tedious process, as you can see. It's not quick. You do have to have patience. There are other faster ways of hulling your walnuts, but it ruins, the ways I've all seen will ruin the hull. And in my case, I want the hull. It's the main reason why I'm digging into this wonderful little fruit here. So you'll find that the ones that aren't quite as ripe are a little harder to peel, but you can go ahead and do these at different stages. Basically, if they're on the ground or if they're starting to fall, they're ready to go. So this right here, what you see, is a walnut shell that's green still. And you can see how it's already starting to stain the glove. And that's really what I'm going to be doing. I'm just going to keep on peeling and hulling all the way up until I get a nice a bunch of hulls here to process. All right, so I am just wrapping up the hulling, the shelling of these black walnuts, and got a lot of stuff going on over here. And I wanted to go ahead and show you the next step and just let you know what to expect. I've got 2 jars here. One is filled about halfway full, maybe a little over halfway, and this one is just about full. I'm going to go ahead and treat them a little differently because I'm making 2 different herbal preparations here. And just look how yellow my hands are. So pretty interesting. But I wanted to show you what the inside of these nuts look like really quick and just kind of talk with you about what you might find. So if you're picking your nuts up from the forest floor or, you know, the ground, depending on how far along they are and how decomposed they are, you may find little maggots in there because there are certain bugs that like to lay their eggs on walnuts, and you may end up with maggots. And don't worry if you do. They're you know, you don't want them in your tincture, obviously, but you just kind of get rid of them. And I'm going to give mine to the chickens. I didn't have that many, though, so that's a good thing. Let's see here if I can find one for you to look at. So that's an example. Usually you'll find them in the very, very black areas. I don't know if you can see that little guy right there. little worm, and it's going to go to my chickens, and they will enjoy it. And so that's something you might see. Another thing I wanted to show you is the actual shell of the nut that's inside. So this is, probably looks familiar to you if you've ever seen a whole walnut before, but that's the walnut. And if you let this cure, and here's a white one here. Oops, hello. That's their white, actually, when they're a little bit more green. And what you do is you just lay these out after you hull them and let them to get seasoned. And then they turn into some really, you know, your nuts that you like to eat. In terms of culinary uses, these walnuts are edible, just like the English walnuts are. The difference is that the English walnuts are not as medicinal, not even close, and they are more preferred for the culinary use. So just be aware of that. These are more medicinal, more, you know, therapeutic for our bodies, while the English walnuts are just more delicious. I think these walnuts are a little bit more tannic, which means if you've ever bitten into like the pith of a banana or the peel of a banana and you've got that bitter taste, that's tannins. And the walnuts are full of that. So anyway, there you go. And here's what one looks like just coming out of the shell there. You can see the nut. And then inside the nut, you'll find that, or inside this, you'll find the fruit, which is the nut meat, which is the part that we actually eat. And let's see, yes. So here is a nice little cross section. The green part is the hull. This is the medicinal part we're using. That white ring is actually the nut shell, and that's what you break open with a nut cracker in order to get to the inner part, which is the nut meat, and that's this part right here. And that's what you'll find in your nuts, your bags of nuts that you buy in the store for cooking. All right, so now we're going to go on to the next step of this, and I'm just going to share with you what I'm going to do here. So one of the things we're going to make is an oil infusion, and I want an oil infusion of the black walnut because I would like to make some salve with this and some ointment to have on hand and be ready in case of some kind of a fungal infection or a candida infection, but basically for topical use on the skin. So I'm going to make, usually I just put my herbs in a jar and I put my oil over the top and I let it steep for 4 to 6 weeks. And that makes a very nice herbal oil, typically. In this case, however, I'm actually going to use a little bit of a different process, and that's because usually when you make an herb infused oil, you want to use dry herbs, and that's to alleviate any kind of potential for getting mold in your infused oil. You don't want moisture in your oil while it's infusing, or you're going to end up with mold. So what I'm going to do is use the fast hot method to make this infused oil. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to cover my black walnut hulls with my oil, actually about to about an inch over the top. So let's just do that right now. Let's just get the oil in here. And these are pretty moist because they're quite green. I had to take advantage of this harvest because I found this tree near my mother's home in Oregon, so it's not anywhere near me here in Idaho. All right, now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go place this in a double boiler or my crock pot filled with some water to about here, turned on to warm or low. I'm going to leave the top open and I'm going to leave the lid of the crock pot off because I want the gentle heat just to warm this oil up and extract the juices from the walnut. Okay, I want the moisture that's in here to be able to evaporate. So that's why I'm leaving this open. The other thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and pour in just about a tablespoon of high proof alcohol, because that's going to help the plant release the constituents as well. And again, I'm leaving this jar open. So this one's going to go on my open crock pot. This jar is going to be covered with alcohol, and I'm going to go ahead and use a high proof 151 proof alcohol, which is about 75% alcohol, in order to make a very strong tincture. I can cover that up. Okay, and I'm just going to go ahead and put a lid on this, and this I'm going to infuse for the 4 to 6 weeks. And what I'm going to end up with is a very black, dark brown, almost black tincture. And the oil as well will be also dark. So there you go. 2 different ways to prepare a medicinal infusion of black walnuts. And you can also make it an herbal tea. You could steep these in water and use that as a wash for your skin as well, as long as it's a really strong wash. And there you go. I think we talked all about the black walnut. I hope you enjoyed this video. And by the way, you know, if you're interested in learning about herbal medicine, I'm going to be opening up the Ditch the Drugstore course again. We're finishing up the first round right now as I make this video. And it's just been amazing to see brand new herbalists have a fast track to getting their home apothecaries ready to go. And that's what it's for. The other option is to join the Confident Herbalist Tribe. The tribe is actually a group of students where we meet every week. There's a master class every single month, and my students take a deep dive into learning about an herb completely in depth, like every single thing you can imagine about the plant, even how to grow it and everything else. So it's pretty exciting stuff. It's wonderful to be empowered in your health choices, and just know that you can walk outside your door and gather plants. It's just absolutely amazing, and really one of the best gifts I've ever given myself is to invest in my education. And my mission is to have an herbalist in every home. If you would like a free herbal remedy guide, you can find it in the description below. If you want to take a free 5-day email course, I'll put a link to that below too. And you're welcome to check those out and enjoy making your own plant medicines. All right, I'm Heidi with Healing Harvest Homestead, and I hope you enjoyed this little quick chat, and I'll see you next time.